All ostensible crimes against such ostensibly existent or bearing laws, therefore, however purportedly outstanding, are hereby forgiven and resolved. 5. Criminal prosecution for breach of power. Any breach of the principle of consent or imposition of redundant or unreasonable expense is non-enforceable, and every attempt to enforce any of the aforesaid breaches of extent or principle on any party to this mandate from the moment of their signature shall be severe criminal transgression of this act. Section 7.5 treats further crimes of the present against us. Seizure of further crimes in related government attempts purportedly to privatize public infrastructures. 1. Unlawful dissolution of infrastructures belonging to the people and rightly managed to the discretion of the people. Government may neither dissolve nor seek to dissolve infrastructural assets held in common by the people under the auspices of government, without first acquiring public assent of a lawful majority. And government may only seek to do so for the purpose either of reimbursing the people or relieving eventual costs from the people for the full remaining value of duly terminated redundant infrastructures. 2. Prior fact of illegality. All prior attempts to do so, by recognition of logical patterns of title and process, are hereby null and void, even if for whatever ostensible reason, imagined exception, or leeway granted by criminal government itself. Any such attempt is not yet found unlawful under prior law. 2a. Any attempt to make any such previous sale stand without affirmation by a lawful majority, and strictly to serve this purpose of reimbursing the ever prior assenting people for duly terminated redundant infrastructures by prior assent, likewise of finalized explicit means, shall remain so considerable as theft, however purportedly decriminalized by criminal participation or grant of leeway, particularly as embodied by the gross betrayals of a criminal government. And particularly as such breaches of principle are theft by every prior recognized principle, every such breach shall be severe criminal transgression of this act. And finally, 3. Criminality of exploitation and unearned profit. Any holding or collection of property for the purpose of unearned profit or exploitation shall be criminal transgression of this act. And the vital principle of earned profit, therefore, shall be understood to comprise the commensurable costs of actually increasing or necessarily preserving the value of material and or necessary commensurable labor. Section 7.6 then was our facts of the severest crimes against the people: inviolable obligation to arrest artificial monetary failure, inviolable obligation to reconstitute public and private promissory obligations, and inviolable obligation to establish perpetual and retroactive absolute consensual representation. This is perhaps the most important section of the document. 1. It establishes criminal multiplication of artificial indebtedness by the present ever unjustified imposition of purported interest. So this is our familiar proof of inherent inevitable failure, with a section concluding, and therefore an inviolable obligation exists altogether to arrest artificial monetary failure only by immediate transformation of the imposed system of exploitation into mathematically perfected economy as prescribed herein. A section 7.7 then establishes a means of reparation of damages, establishment of mathematically perfected economy commensurable in and from a just initial sustainable state, concluding with a prescription for persistence in mathematically perfected economy amidst potentially obfuscated currencies persisting about the world. So these in turn are vital points in regard to transformation to mathematically perfected economy, and particularly to doing so in establishing a just initial sustainable state. 1. Necessary determination of a proper volume of circulation by observation of the only principles which achieve immutable tokenization of freely determined value. To repair damages so much as observation of necessary rules of inflation, deflation, and immutable representative tokenization of value permit, and to so sustain all just, desirable prosperity thereafter, an initial state must be established in which, without even a need for manual attendance to regulation, a mathematically perfected circulation shall be perpetually equivalent to the remaining value of existent production by a perpetual capacity to monetize unobligated equity and obligatory schedules of payment, retiring principal at perceived rates of consumption or depreciation of the related property. Observation of this principle, therefore, shall determine the effective circulation, for the object of immutable tokenization of value is otherwise impossible. 2. Necessary refinancing of all existent promissory obligations under mathematically perfected economy. To repair damages as much as practical in observation of this indispensable principle, therefore, all promissory obligations shall immediately be refinanced under mathematically perfected economy. A. Reconsidering the original promissory obligation to be no more than the cost of production in current units of currency bereft of exploitation. B. Counting all prior payments of interest instead toward principal. C. And with the balance of principal thereafter being subject to obligatory schedules of payment, retiring principal at the perceived rate of consumption or depreciation of the related property. Now, if I may stop here a minute to explain that these are not mere matters of opinion or desire. When we're damaged, and we might sue for reparation of damages, the object of the process is to restore as much as possible a state in which the damage would have existed if they were not damaged. And so this is exactly what we were doing here, and these are the mathematic requisites of as much as possible, given the property that exists and the circulation which must exist to represent it immutably ever afterward. These are the requisites that we must abide by in order to achieve not only a reparation, but an initial sustainable state from which all future tokenization of property will be immutable as well. 3. Means of determinably restoring a necessary remainder of the circulation to the accounts of the people. Furthermore, as the only just means of sustaining a prosperous populace in retirement is to preserve from their earnings so much as sustains a self-determined state of prosperity across retirement. Thus the remainder of an effective circulation shall be restored proportionately by uniformly crediting the accounts of the people of at least working age, so much as they may have saved during working life, less what they would have spent during retired life. Now, when you have questions about this, this is a topic that we may discuss in considerable detail. What would be the exact formula for doing this? And basically, it's a matter of determining how much further circulation there should be, how many years of working exist per capita across the entire populace, and how many years of retirement would have spent from the savings, leaving what circulation, increase in circulation, we must credit to the accounts of the people in order to establish this initial sustainable state. So the math is actually concrete in the expression that we've just read, and so any further questions that you may have, and I imagine people will want to talk about this considerably, because it's a question that I've answered to, over years and years and years of how to do this. So it's very basic math in truth, and this basic explanation does account for what we need to do. 4. Means of accommodating a segregated persistence in unearned gain, if any. Being as unearned gain is mutually exclusive to the indispensable objects of true free enterprise. Therefore, to preserve the sovereign rights of true free enterprise, a mutually assented divorce of ways shall exist, in which neither the commerce nor currency of unearned gain shall interact with truly free and just enterprise, but by according devaluation of the commerce and currency of unearned gain so effective as to strip unearned gain from the costs to truly free and just enterprise. 5. Lawful resolution of purported foreign debt. Foreign debt, bound to no more than uniform, achievable, practiced principles of respondents, shall either A. be forgiven, B. shall be paid by like irredeemable instruments of artificial indebtedness, C. shall be paid from the assets of assenting parties, if any, D. or should the ostensible debtors have incurred such obligations by explicit agreement,